Hello again. I'm now going to take this standard t-shirt block and turn it into a zero waste t-shirt block. This should be interesting. I am doing this from scratch and we're going to see how it goes. I'm starting by flipping pieces on its head. I usually like looking at the space objects take up before actually going in and changing anything. I always find really interesting shapes in the armholes and neck holes together. I'm going in this with the mindset that I am allowed to change things if I want to, so just keep that in mind. I oftentimes use the neck cutout as either a half moon that can fold backwards or use as a pocket, and I'm going to work on readjusting these sleeves to fit within themselves. So I'm going to remove this linked editing, rotate this around, and we can adjust the curve so that these will fit into each other really nicely. And then usually I have a seam down the center of them as well. One thing I also frequently do with shirts is this space at the shoulders where it's getting cut out. I use that as some of the shaping here with the sleeve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a vertical line here. I don't actually think that got to the end. Let's try that again. There and there. And now we're just going to cut and sew these so that when they get cut off, they'll still be sewn where we've done that. So as we go, you want to remember to make sure to add seam allowances back on. And with this gusset that I've cut off, I want to rejoin these pieces. So I'm getting them as close as I can. We're going to have to delete the curve that's here in the center. So you can just hit merge and it'll do it automatically, or you can go in here and hit delete curve points and it'll just make it a straight line. You can also rotate the patterns to make sure that they're 100% aligned. So you can hit rotate y-axis and hit the side that you want to rotate. And I like doing that just to make sure that it's merged perfectly straight. So now I'm going to highlight both of these edges and hit merge. Great. And then I'm going to just smooth out this curve. And that may need to change, but for right now, that's what we're going to do. All right. So let's see, will this indeed fit in the shoulder area like I'm hoping? And it does almost perfectly. That's amazing. That never happens. Cool. It's a little bit long, but we might be adjusting some of the shoulder details anyway. So let's leave it like that for now. And now that this is the shape I'm working off of, I'm going to delete this other sleeve and I'm going to make a copy of this one. And I'm going to rotate this around and start finding that like symmetrical balance of sleeve, head, and armhole. The main thing is that we want to make sure we keep the height here and here the same, and then other things around that can be a bit more flexible. And actually, this is going to have a seam down the center. So I'm just going to split this now. Maybe that'll be a little bit easier to work on. Don't forget to add in seam allowance. All right. So it looks like we basically just need to do some reshaping here. What I am going to do is I'm going to add a point just directly in the middle. I'm going to uniform split. And then I'm going to smooth the curve. That way I get handlebar ends so that I can adjust manually. Doesn't look like it's in the middle. Oops, I did that one wrong. Let me undo that. And we'll try again. So that's the side we want to curve. There we go. Great. All right, and now we have our handles, which will make it a lot easier for us to adjust. So why don't we try, making these curves a little bit more extreme? And one thing to remember is that since this needs to be symmetrical, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll copy it. Oop, I just said copy, not layer clone. You copy it and rotate it around, and you can check as you go. So this one is a pretty extreme curve. I also might want to like flatten it a little bit just because it is so extreme. I have a few other sleeve examples I can also look at if I don't end up finding a solution that I like. But let's just keep trying for a little bit. I think I'm going to flatten this. It's really hard getting a symmetrical curve. Let's try this. We're going to keep cutting and pasting until we get close. Oh, this is looking closer. All right, remember your seam allowances need to match up on the outside. So I think now if I just move this like this, it's a very funny looking shape though. I don't know if I like that. All right, almost there. Let's bring this back in a little. And it doesn't need to be perfect. We're just getting a good idea of what we want. All right, I think that is good enough to keep working for now. What I wish I had done was kept the original sleeve there so we could take some measurements and see how close we are. But we have the one piece of the sleeve left. So this shape is 23.49 cm long, and this one is 23.99. So what I want to do is I'm just gonna, excuse me, shrink this up a little bit. Don't like that. We just want to make it a little bit shorter. Twenty-three point 23.49. So it's like a quarter off. Not ideal, but we'll survive. All right, I made a few changes. Let me just copy this, rotate it around, and make sure that it's symmetrical. All right, and again, there's a little bit of zhuzhing I need to do to get that curve to be perfectly symmetrical, but this is good enough. And let's see, 2.11 on the outside, 2.51. So let's shrink this by 0.4. We'll shrink this by 0.4. We want these edges to be the exact same. And then 23.49, 23.58. Okay, so we're doing pretty well. That's like 0.1 of a cm different. So there we go. We've got our sleeves. I do like seeing how they kind of naturally fit within the space I'm making. This is going cross grain, but it's always interesting to look. Keep in mind that we do need 2 of these. So I'm going to symmetric pattern with sewing. And I'm just going to start lining these up as I go. And because I did that, I need to restitch a lot of these. We're going to turn on our arrangement points, and we're going to make this, turn on that chart. There we go. Make this one. Oh, if you have sleeves that are rotated, it'll try to place them upside down. So just keep that in mind. And then you can rotate them back after you make their placement. Okay. So let me stitch these together. Oh, you have to make sure you're stitching the right ones. Once they start getting all cattywampus, you're just going to want to make sure. All right. And we're going to restitch, including the underarm gusset. So what I need to do is make a symmetric pattern of that one as well. Great, that one should be under there. Oh, actually, I stitched these together when I shouldn't have. Why don't I pull them out to make it a little bit easier to identify which one's which? Okay, so that one's over here. This one's here. And this is the underarm for this piece. Okay. So stitch, 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 stitch. All right, this is already sewn for the underarm, so I'm just going to stitch the upper piece, which is here. The sleeve is, as I had said earlier, it's a little bit big, but yeah, I might want to reduce that a little bit. Okay, another thing, I turned the particle distance down to 5 when we were looking at this earlier, so I'm going to put it back up to 20 so we don't take power. All right, let's see. Okay, so this is a little bit bigger. This is almost 2 cm bigger. Yeah, we're going to want to take that down a little bit. All right, now these are stitched and in the spot I want them. So I'm going to bring these back up to their placements. Not perfect. How many times can I say not perfect? All right, let's put these back. Okay. Got the under gusset going. Okay, let's see. If I want to shrink a little bit, what I'm going to do, I could do it manually, but I'm honestly just going to just a little. If I wanted to, I can also shrink the head. That actually might be the solution I end up going for. Yeah, let me undo that. Okay. So to shrink the head, I'm just going to grab these 4 points. Oops. Come on. And we're just going to lower it a quarter. That also means that the underarm is raised a quarter. So take all of this with a grain of salt. Okay. Yeah, that helps a little, I think. Still a bit extra back here, but that's okay. We'll keep going. All right, and keep in mind that we do have our seam allowance, our hem turned back as an inch, which is good. It is a bit wider than I would prefer for this layout because you can see there's like that strip along the side that's not being counted for right now. So what do we want to do next? One thing I really want to do is open up this neckline because it is teeny tiny. So I'm just going to drag this down, let's say 2 cm, and I'm going to reshape the collar. I use the smooth curve tool quite a lot for these things. I also am going to maybe drop the back a little bit and reshape it so I can get those the end tools. There we go, little hands. Everyone calls them something different. Okay, and because I opened that up, I'm going to need to open up this a little bit. We're going by gut feel right now, not by... Okay. All right, so one of the things that I'm just itching to do is to scoop this out to make it one long shape. And I think that's going to be a combination of shortening the gusset, which means that under here, the gusset will just end before the end of the sleeve, which is okay. So I'm going to do that first. So I'm going to move this one in a CM. And almost a perfect CM. And then I'm going to delete these curve points so that we just have a straight angle. Now 10.77 and 11. So we're going to try to make these match. That's almost perfect. We're going to have to go back up here and readjust. So we're going to scoot our sewing lines down so that they are even now with the gusset length that we adjusted to. And we're going to need to stitch up the underarms. So let's just make sure we're doing the right one. So this one and this one will get merged together. There we go. I'm going to make sure that you aren't sewing across the body. It does kick out a little bit when you do this method. It's not my favorite thing in the world. It's not the worst. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep smoothing some of these areas. So I'm going to go to the front and redraw a curve to be just a bit smoother. Same thing on the back. We're adding a bit of volume when we do this, so we're going to have to readdress how it sits because it's adding a bit more fabric. So we're just going to want to make sure that it sits well. And actually, it might sit a little bit better, gives it a little bit more space to breathe. He's a bit of a tight shirt. Cool. Just trying to make it nice and smooth in this one shape area. Okay. Now let's see. From here, there are a couple of things we could do. What I've done in the past is I make a shape to fill in this space, and we utilize it for a bunch of things. I end up using it as vents quite a lot, like a vented side seam. That's been really fun. To do that, what it would look like is basically here. Very loosely get the shape of it going, and then you adjust it after you add the seam allowance. Okay, so this would need to come down. This is looking pretty good. And that would want to come out. Readjust these. Not perfectly symmetrical. That's okay for right now. I would want to go in and just make these a little bit curvier and a little nicer. So then what I would do is like use this, add a seam here, or add a line, and go in and fold. And stitch it in the side seam right here. So I'm not going to do all that work right now, I don't think, unless this is the direction I decide to go. And then there's a little triangle fold that I often will put in. Maybe I do one side as that. Yeah, let's do it. Why not? Okay, so to do this method, we're going to do it on this side of the body. So I'm actually going to flip them around. The front and back are not symmetric, which will drive, the armholes are not symmetric, which will drive me crazy. So I'll go in and probably edit that later. All right, so you need to find the length of the side seam, so 25.89, and you're going to make a mark here. 25.89 in the front and the same on the back, coming up from the bottom. All right, so then the seam that you had sewn before, you're going to edit it to just sew from the underarm to the top of that notch you just drew. I'm just adding points. You can add notches if you want. You would just use this notch tool and it adds a little red mark. So we could do that, why not? Is it notching on the side? Whatever. So then this side is facing the front. So we're going to stitch from the bottom to here, stitch from the bottom to here, and from the bottom here to the center, and the bottom here to the center. Okay, when you hit sew, you'll have this kind of open, flappy vent. So I've done this triangle folding method for a lot of my shorts, the Zero Waste Shorts Pattern Master. So what I'm going to do now is just draw these like rectangular lines here, and that helps the shirt fold. Because basically what we want to do is overlap the seam on top of the other one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the avatar, and I'm going to use the W function, which is like if you hit W and click, it'll give you like a little point you can move around. So I'm going to create these 2 points to try to overlap my garments. You can use pins and tucks and things like that, but for just getting the shape right, usually these are very helpful. Right, so this looks like it's folded pretty much in the right shape. Let me try deleting this interior one. You can also, I see what I did. I put these on the wrong side. We duplicate them. There we go. So like this line, you want to be folded at 0. So you can highlight the line, this one, and you can put the fold angle to 0 and really increase that fold strength. And then if you delete this little point, that should help. You can do the same thing for the other one. You would do 360 for this one. And then that should sit really nicely. You can, of course, tack it or like faux stitch. I'll just tack it for now. There we go. Great. So then, yeah, this is a nice, like, kind of athletic or kind of like Japanese layer looking. That's not going to be a finishing that's for everyone. It also doesn't have like a traditional turn back hem. It would have like a piping or like a bias tape or something to sew that rounded vent shape. So it's a good option, but I don't know if it's for everyone. Let me save this. Blocks will go for the T. T trial. All right. And so then, as I was saying, like we're going to look at this in halves. Okay. So actually, here, I'll cover up this half while we're looking at this one. And I'll just hide this so that we aren't looking at that in the 3D window. So if we're looking at the pattern right here, this way, right now we have this area that has nothing in it. And we have this area, which we can either use as a turn back at the back neck, or we can use it as a pocket. So, I mean, things I've used areas like this for before would be neck bands. I think it's a bit of an awkward shape sometimes. Like it's actually, it fits really well this time, of course. Let's see. Actually, this could be a great neck tape use. You know what? We're going to do that and call it. Since it's on a fold, you would double the size of it and add seam allowance. So let's do that. We'll add a CM. Maybe we make the neck opening a little bit bigger so that we can stretch this to fill the space. Let's see. Actually, these can come down a little bit. There we go. Okay, so this is 19.86 on the length, and this is 21.4. Oh, that should be fine. And then we would make it a turn back, but just for ease of doing this right now, I'm just going to layer clone under and make another one of it. And I'd probably make this a little bit wider too. And we can flip this, and you'll see that there's a seam, but there we go. So I'll need to go in and work on that, but that's a pretty darn good shirt layout. I'd say. I'm very happy with how easily that came together. I'm kind of surprised that doesn't happen that often. So, oh, I see why. That's because there's a whole other square over there that we haven't used yet. All right, so we've looked at that side for that option. We're just going to save that. And then we're going to look at the other side for a different option. Or, you know what, I'm just going to make a copy of this and paste it over here. So we have this. I'm just going to archive it, or I can freeze it. We're just going to archive it. And then if we make any edits, we'll still have this version here. So now I'm going to do a different version. One of the ideas I had was basically if you can't grow something to fill a space, you shrink the space that you can't fill. So I think these areas here, trying to draw, these areas, I think we should cut off and try to find a space for them as a gusset, or I'm sorry, as a side panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find kind of the most central spot here. There we go. Find it on the other side as well. And we are going to cut these off. We'll cut and sew. I'm going to rotate this around so that I can join up these pieces. We did have a vent on this, so we're going to need to delete these notches because they are not relevant for this example. And we're going to need to edit this stitching. Actually, we won't edit the stitching because we're just going to merge these. Yeah. So now you can see that that side panel is there. What I'm going to do is delete that point just so this is completely straight and add it back in my seam allowance. I think all the stitching should still be the same. And then I don't like how far up this comes on here. What I would probably do is square this out a little bit and make it a little bit easier to fit into a space. One thing to think about is, can this fit horizontally here? It looks like it's like a little bit too small to do that. Yeah, that's a bummer. So what I would do is then just turn this into its own pattern piece. We need to add seam allowance back on here as well. Let's see, I'm going to bring this down and readjust this. Probably do that quite a bit. The ideal would be if we just squared this off. I know that that would be a lot though, a lot of change. So let's just do this for now. And then on the seam allowance, you can highlight these top pieces and you can change it to cut it off earlier. Let's see, there are a couple we can try. There you go. We would still want the seam allowance, but I just don't want the long pointy things in our way. So, I wish it would fit into space. You know what? If we shortened the shirt, it would. Hold on, let me see. Okay, we need to readjust the sewing on this a little bit. Readjust here. Okay. There's a little bit of work we need to do. We put him over here and we can readjust. So this seam allowance has now changed quite, or this stitching has changed quite significantly. We need to change it from just being stitched. Get back in there. Instead of just being stitched to the under panel, this piece needs to get stitched into both. So we're going to do. And I think I need to do it for the other side too. Yeah. Am I stitching on the back right now? Yes. So we'll stitch from there and there and there to there. Oops. I did the thing. Oopsie. Okay, I think I can just delete this portion. And we can just go like that. Nope. It's the most annoying thing. Okay, so it's the brown that is confused. All right, we'll switch out the brown. There we go. Not so hard, is it? And again, I'm going to delete my baselines because I don't like having them. And then every so often, if you want to see how your design is coming along, you can turn on this schematic render and it'll show you what it looks like as you continue on. I always find that helpful. Oh, and I need a collar over here. We will unarchive this. And stitch it. Sometimes it takes a few tries to get it correct. There you go. Great. Okay. So, I mean, this is pretty great because you've got the main body completely in the right spot that you want it. I need to adjust this just a little bit. We got the body and sleeves, and now it would just be about figuring out these side seams. So let's see, how long is this shirt currently? It's currently 70 cm, which, what is that in inches? Seven and a half. Okay, that's not bad, but I wouldn't want to shrink it that short. I wonder if maybe we could just put this on the side. It would still be short. Remove link editing. Ooh, you know what? Actually, I think you could probably fit two of these. Ah, almost. Not quite. Oh, I was excited there first. Thought maybe we could line these up and put the neck bands in here and cut out two shirts at once. I do feel like if I pushed it a little bit further, I could, like, just remove some more of this overlap. But again, I think that would be pushing it a little bit too far. But it's such a good use of the space. 2, 3, 4. And the neckbands would fit in there really well. Well, I will need to figure out what to do with this circle right here. I do wonder how bad it would be to just square off this armhole. Maybe I try it. Ooh, put this sideways now. Almost, not quite. But fitting a rectangle is a lot easier than fitting an oddly shaped piece. It'll probably fit just fine over here now. Oh my god, almost perfectly. Ah, almost exactly perfectly. Okay, that's got to be it. That's got to be the solution. Sometimes things are just they fit too perfectly where saying no to it would be a sin. Not actually. Okay. Now let's readjust this sewing again. Do. Adjust. Hmm. How wide is this? 6.42, 11.48. Okay, we need to add in some middle points here. All right, and which? It looks like this is over here. So I'll just stitch on this side so I know where I am. Okay. We're on this side. And this is the one. Just going to do this painstakingly bit by bit. And which? Okay. So then this one, from here to here. Yep. And here to here. Where's the other one? Okay, yeah, that's right. No. Damn. All right, what did I get wrong? What did I get wrong? Oh, it's just on the wrong side. Okay, that's fine. There we go. Yeah, buddy. Oh my god. Okay, this is good. Oh yeah. And it still fits relatively well. Right here, there's a little bit of a bump. It's on the sleeve portion. Yes, there's a little overlap. There we go. All right. Again, I'll need to go in and clean these up just a little bit, but look at that. We have a zero waste, two options for a zero waste tee. With this, again, you can turn back for a half moon, just turn back and stitch it, or you can turn it into a pocket. Either one doesn't matter to me. The neckband can be cut separate, and then I often use a separate rib anyway, and then there's our perfectly fitting second set of side pieces. So ideally you would cut out two zero waste shirts of this at the same time, where you would just cut out two at the same time. Well, cool. I hope this, I'll go ahead and do just a little analysis in the next video.